Hello, everyone. Welcome to How to Read Chinese Poetry podcast. I'm Zong-qi, the program host. In this podcast program, my colleagues and I aim to introduce cutting-edge scholarship on Chinese poetry to a broad general audience. We will present 52 episodes covering the major poetic genres developed over China's long history. Each episode features close reading of one or more of the best-known Chinese poems, with an aim to illuminate their literary greatness and cultural significance. For all the discussed poems, Chinese text, English translation, romanization, and brief notes are provided at our website, howtoreadchinesepoetry.com. By following the 52 episodes, listener will gain a bird's-eye view of the thematic, formal, and generic evolution of Chinese poetry from antiquity to the modern era. Instruct and delight is what we wish to accomplish in each talk. Without further ado, let's begin. Today, our guest host, Dr. Samei, will present her second episode entitled Courtesans, Poets, and the Courtesan-Poet Xue Tao. Let us welcome Dr. Samei.
Welcome to the second of our 3 episodes on women and poetry in the Tang. Our subject today will be courtesan entertainers, or qi in Chinese. We will discuss their concourse with literati poets, their association with the newly developing ci or song lyric genre, and finally, the example of one of the most well-known women poets of the Tang, the courtesan Xue Tao. As I mentioned in a previous episode, the lifestyle of courtesans and nuns by definition violates the boundary between inner and outer, public and private spheres. Nuns and courtesans, by leaving home and saying no to marriage and children, lived beyond the reach of traditional relationships with husbands and sons. Not to say that these women enjoyed complete freedom in any modern sense of the word. The courtesans' movements and actions in particular were subject to the rules of her house, which functioned as a sort of stand-in for family, complete with a mother. Her movements would have been limited to the entertainment districts of the large cities, beyond which she was not to venture. If she were lucky enough to secure a male patron or a placement in a family, she was at the mercy of his whims and could be sent away for any or no reason. However, her lifestyle did permit her to socialize extensively with men outside her immediate family and to be a part of their outer or public sphere. During the Tang, the government controlled official entertainment bureaus in which courtesans were registered and classified by level, as well as entertainment districts, beyond which, again, their movements were restricted. The practice of frequenting these districts on the part of scholar officials and elites was taken for granted and indeed expected. The sexual aspect of the courtesan's life was secondary to her role as a social and literary partner or hostess. In this respect, she was similar to the Japanese geisha. Women of good families were sometimes educated so that they could cultivate their character through study and so that they could participate in poetic and literary exchanges within the family or within marriage. If they or their families subsequently fell on hard times, these educated women could be taken into the entertainment bureau, a family, or the palace as entertainers. Women of lower rank, on the other hand, might have been sold at a young age and given their literary and musical training specifically for the purpose of serving as an entertainer. The courtesan entertainer was at once looked upon with suspicion because she exercised her literary talents outside the confines of the family compound, where, even if sex was secondary, she did enjoy considerable freedom. And at the same time, she was respected by her male literati clients and guests, functioning in many ways as their equal. Although literary nuns and courtesans were appreciated by their contemporaries for their poetry, music, and intelligent companionship, they could never escape the stigma of their chosen lifestyle, and neither path was considered an appropriate or desirable choice for one's daughter. One important window into the lifestyles of female entertainers and their male literati companions during the Tang is the large number of song lyrics that have come down to us. These were lyrics set to new popular music from Central Asia that was making its way into China. During the reign of Emperor Xuanzong of the Tang, his entertainment bureau published a list of the titles of these songs. About 2/3 of these song titles also appear in the Dunhuang manuscripts, a trove of materials including largely popular and anonymous songs discovered in the early 20th century. This suggests that entertainers both inside and outside the imperial court were performing songs set to this new music. Courtesans wrote new lyrics for these songs, as did the literati who patronized them. These lyrics would become known as the ci, or song lyric, genre of Chinese poetry. The association of this new genre with singing girls or courtesans was so strong that when the first literati anthology of ci poems, the Huajianji, was put together in 940, the preface writer took pains to distance the genre from this association with courtesans' love songs, or what he called the songs of the lotus boats. But thematically, the ci would be dominated by feminine voice and concerns for the first couple of centuries of its existence before taking on a broader sensibility during the Song Dynasty. This practice of poetic exchange and composition of song lyrics among courtesans and the literati is reflected in many of the poems themselves. I'd like to share an example of a song lyric written in the voice of a courtesan to her lover, this one by the male poet Gu Xiong of the Five Dynasties period that followed the Tang. The poem is written to the tune Lotus Leaf Cup. Gu Xiong, to the tune Lotus Leaf Cup. When I call to mind your poem, its hardest. Did you know every last word full of care? I write my deep feelings, send them on crimson slips. Will you chant it? Will you chant it? The title of the poem marks it as a song lyric. It is set to a tune known as Lotus Leaf Cup, one of hundreds of different tune titles, each of which would have dictated the number of characters per line, as well as requirements for certain tones to fall in certain positions on the line, probably following the contours of the musical melody to which it was set. The speaker here is clearly marked as female by the use of the masculine second-person pronoun jun in the first line. When I call to mind your poem, its hardest. She's remembering a love poem that had been addressed to herself, a lyric poem in the shi genre. In return, she writes out her feelings in this song lyric to send him on a crimson slip of paper, hoping he will chant it or sing it. This song appears to be in the voice of the courtesan, but many song lyrics also take a more external perspective towards the figure of the courtesan, depicting her typically as a woman in her bedchamber, often at her toilet or playing a musical instrument, or languishing in her chamber alone, overcome with ennui. The following anonymous poem from Dunhuang suggests that the entertainment quarters are the context where a beauty lies sleeping within the curtain, while a banquet continues without. Anonymous, to the tune Bodhisattva Barbarian. A crimson brazier warms the chamber where the beauty sleeps. Beyond the curtain, flying snow adds to the wintry chill. In the small court, the sound of pipes and singing. A fragrance wafts and settles on silken robes. Wine is poured, filling golden cups. Amid fragrant musk, a banquet is laid again. The gentleman is drunk as mud. On the avenue of heaven, a horse is heard neighing. The scene here is Luoyang, also known as the Eastern capital, and the setting is most likely a house of multiple courtesans, as one lies sleeping while the party continues in the courtyard. Clearly, the gentleman in question has lingered there long so that his horse is becoming restless in the cold of the street. The poem paints a picture of aristocratic leisure and decadence, but also illustrates the communal context of poetic and musical production and appreciation in which female entertainers played an integral part. When the literati wrote in the voice of a woman, as in Gu Xiong's poem to the tune Lotus Leaf Cup, and that poem was sung by a courtesan, we get the gender-bending situation of a woman's voice singing the words of a male poet writing in female voice. But what happened when a female entertainer sang a song in which the female subject was objectified or viewed from outside, or in which we may perceive a male gaze at work? It's not surprising that most of the poems that survive from the pens of known female poets don't fall into this category. One such courtesan would become one of the most well-known female poets of the Tang, Xue Tao. Xue Tao is so well known, probably in part because of her reputed friendship with several famous poets of the time, most notably Yuan Zhen and Bai Juyi. But she exchanged poems with numerous well-known poets of the era. Xue Tao's life trajectory is a good example of how a woman might end up as an entertainer. The daughter of a low-ranking official, she started life as the child of a good family of the capital, Chang'an. Her father was posted to Chengdu in the southwestern province of Shu, present-day Sichuan. And there's an anecdote concerning Xue Tao as a child that tells us a lot about attitudes towards women's literary talent. The story is collected in the Tang Yi Shi Hui Bian, a collection of anecdotes about Tang personalities, and I'm reading from Edelman Grant's translation of the anecdote here. One day, Xue Tao's father pointed to the wutong tree in their courtyard and recited, "In front of the courtyard steps an ancient wutong tree. Its towering trunk rises up into the clouds." When he ordered Xue Tao to continue the poem, she immediately responded with the following lines: "Its branches welcome birds from north and south. Its leaves send off the winds that come and go." This left her father filled with sadness for a long time. In this story, her father is sad because despite her precocious ability, the way Xue Tao completes the couplet suggests she's destined for the life of a courtesan, like a branch that welcomes birds from north and south and winds that come and go, rather than for a stable and respectable family life. After her father died, leaving her mother a widow, Xue Tao was invited by the then governor of Shu, Wei Gao, to serve at his banquets and compose poems. Being unmarried and without her father's income or protection, it's easy to see why Xue Tao would have accepted this offer. She served in this capacity for 20 years, serving a total of 11 governors, during which time her name was reportedly put forward for an official post as collator, a kind of official librarian or editor, though sources suggest this request was denied. Xue Tao was so often referred to by the title female collator or 女教书 that the term would later come to be used as a euphemism for a courtesan. During her career, Xue Tao moved in circles with many of the premier poets of the time, including Yuan Zhen. The story of her acquaintance with Yuan Zhen, which dates to 809, suggests that Xue Tao's fame extended beyond her hometown of Chengdu. And again, I'm reading from Edelman Grant's translation of the story from the Tangren Yi Shi Hui Bian. As soon as Minister Yuan Zhen heard that among the registered courtesans of Sichuan there was a certain Xue Tao who was competent in poetry and extremely eloquent, he continuously longed for her in his heart. When he was appointed an investigation commissioner, he asked to be posted to Sichuan. But as he was judging cases in his capacity as censor, it was impossible for him to go visit her. When he was later relieved of his duties and transferred to the position of commissioner, the prefect Yan Shou, knowing of Yuan Zhen's desires, again and again sent Xue Tao over to him. When Yuan Zhen was about to depart, he didn't dare take her with him. So Xue Tao's reputation as a poet was what attracted Yuan Zhen to her, so that even before he had seen her, he longed for her in his heart. Among Xue Tao's well-known works is a series of 10 poems on separation, which have traditionally been regarded as addressed to Yuanzhen, but could also have been addressed to another of her main patrons. I'm going to read 2 poems from this series. The first employs the metaphor of a writing brush separated from the hand. And as you listen, notice that in the first line, the shaft from Yue refers to the best reeds for writing brushes, which were found in the region of Yue in southeastern China, close to Vietnam. And the hairs from Xuan refers to the best wolf or rabbit hair for fitting writing brushes, found in the town of Xuancheng in modern Anhui province. Listen now to the first poem. The writing brush separated from the hand. With its shaft from Yue and hairs from Xuan, it used to suit him just right. It scattered petals and cast gems across crimson slips, all because after long use the tip has grown blunt. It no longer gets to be held in Shizhi's hand. The last line, it no longer gets to be held in Shizhi's hand, refers to the famous calligrapher Wang Shizhi of the Six Dynasties period, whose style Xue Tao was well known for emulating in her own highly regarded calligraphy. Together with the beginning references to fine shafts and brush hairs, Xue Tao is tooting her own horn here, comparing herself to the best quality brush, even as she complains of having been set aside, perhaps because of her age, as suggested by line 3, all because after long use the tip has grown blunt. Her reference to crimson slips also draws attention to her reputation, as this calls to mind a special small handmade stationery that she created for the exchange of poems, which would later come to be known as Xue Tao slips. If this poem suggests the pen has been set aside due to no fault of its own, other poems of the series suggest a major faux pas is the reason for the speaker's loss of favor. And this is the case in the following example, which adopts the metaphor of a fish separated from its pond. The fish separated from the pond. 4 or 5 autumns she frolicked and leapt in the lotus pond, often flicking her crimson tail to tease the hook and line. For no reason it caught and broke the stem of a lotus bloom. Now she can no longer swim in the clear waves. The reference to the lotus pond more openly suggests the relationship of a lover, since the word lotus, lian, is a close homonym to the word for love or attachment, lian. Tradition suggests that Xue Tao had somehow angered Yuanzhen, but scholars have also questioned the attribution of these poems to Xue Tao at all, due to their very programmatic nature, and have suggested that if she did write them, she may have done so extemporaneously or as part of an exercise or game. Perhaps a more typical and representative poem of Xue Tao's is the following one, entitled Answering Someone's Poem on Enjoying Bamboo After Rain. Here again, the social practices of writing poetry show up. Someone else has written a poem on enjoying bamboo, and Xue Tao is answering it with a poem of her own. Listen now to the poem. Answering someone's poem on enjoying bamboo after rain. How in this southern clime, during the spring rains, can you observe its attitude amidst snow and frost? Yet, among the masses of plants that shoot up, luxuriant, its empty heart allows it to hold itself straight. It attracted all those sage gin drunkards and early accompanied Shun's wives in their grief. In old age, sir, you will appreciate how green its strong joints amaze. Xue Tao's poem begins by pointing out that the true strength of bamboo, its persistence through the winter, doesn't show up in a southern climate in the rain. Yet she goes on to show how even among the many other trees and plants newly flourishing in spring, the bamboo holds itself straight and tall due to its xu xin, and the word xu xin, or empty heart, means modesty and humility, but here plays up the characteristic hollow center of the bamboo. The first line of the second stanza, "It attracted all those sage Jin drunkards," refers to the Jin dynasty's 7 sages of the bamboo grove, a group of philosophers and thinkers known for their freewheeling enjoyment of wine and nature. The second line, "Early accompanied Shun's wives in their grief," refers to the story of how, when the legendary Emperor Shun died on a tour of the south, his wives shed tears of grief, which became the streaks on a modeled variety of bamboo that flourishes there. In the final couplet, Xue Tao returns to the bamboo's poetic association with strength and endurance through all weather, like the pine and cypress that remain evergreen over winter. "In old age, sir, you will appreciate how green its strong joints amaze." Often, references to evergreens in poems were ways for poets to call attention to someone's integrity. Perhaps Xue Tao here is claiming for herself the bamboo's modesty, its empty heart, as well as its evergreen persistence, its strength and integrity, qualities that will continue into her old age. On 2 occasions, Xue Tao suffered banishment to the border region. Some poems survive from the period of her banishment. The suffering and homesickness associated with being posted to a border location were common and well-established themes in Shi poetry by the Tang, due to the constant threat over the centuries from so-called barbarians along China's long northern and western borders, and the consequent need for officials to serve in those remote areas. As the title of the following poem suggests, Xue Tao was sent to serve at a border garrison as a kind of exile. As such, her fate is not dissimilar to that of male officials, for whom a posting in a border region constituted a kind of exile. And this poem is addressed to her patron, Secretary Wei. Exiled to the border, my feelings, sent to Secretary Wei. I had heard tell of the sufferings of the border, but only now that I'm here do I begin to understand. Ashamed, I take up a song from your courts and sing it for these boys of the past. Again, we see the practice of courtesans singing poems and songs that may have been written for them or with them. Here, Xue Tao feels the shame of singing a song she had been used to sing in her patron's household, offering her carefully cultivated skills to the boys of the past, who surely can't appreciate her talents as her patron, Secretary Wei, would have done. Maybe Xue Tao hopes to elicit Secretary Wei's jealousy that this accomplished and beautiful woman, accustomed to performing in his household and under his supervision, is plying her skills before common soldiers. The reference to her shame also could imply that she experiences this as a sort of unfaithfulness in addition to humiliation. Xue Tao's exile was temporary, and she ended up retiring in her 40s and living out her days as an independent woman. Some accounts say that she put on the habit of a Taoist nun when she took up residence in her estate along the river, but this may have been less a religious move than a way to indicate her chosen life of independence and withdrawal from the society at Chengdu. While there, she continued to receive visitors and compose poems. The offense that got Xue Tao banished must have been a mild one, considering the fates of Li Ye and Yu Xuanji, 2 nuns turned courtesans, whose stories we will consider in the next episode, both of whom ended up losing their lives for their offenses. But that's a story for next time. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me.
Let us thank Dr. Samei for such a stimulating talk. We look forward to presenting her 3rd episode on women and poetry in the Tang Dynasty next Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed today's talk. Let's relax and listen to a reading of the poem in Mandarin by Zhao Wenxuan.
荷叶碑，顾兄。我忆军师最苦，知否？字字尽关心。红笺写迹表情深，银磨银，银磨银。菩萨蛮，欧阳炯。红炉暖阁佳人睡，隔帘飞雪天寒气。小院奏笙歌，香气簇绮罗。酒清金盏满，兰麝重开宴。公子醉如泥，天阶闻马嘶。十离诗，比离手，薛涛。乐管喧号始称情，红笺纸上洒花琼。都园用酒风头尽，不得西之手里情。十离诗，余离池，薛涛。细月莲池四五秋，长摇朱尾弄轮钩。无端百段芙蓉朵，不得清波更一游。愁人雨后玩烛，薛涛。南天春雨时，哪见雪霜姿。众泪亦云冒，虚心能自持。多留尽闲醉，早办顺飞杯。万岁君能赏，苍苍尽结旗。伐赋边有怀，上为令公。其一，薛涛。闻道边城苦，而今道始知。休将门下曲，唱与陇头儿。